When Ada disappeared into the trees, it was like a part of the richness of the world had gone with her. He had been alone in the world and empty for so long, but she filled him full, and so he believed everything that had been taken out of him might have been for a purpose, to clear space for something better. Hi, my name is Nick Alamonos. I am a blogger, YouTuber, author, and book reviewer. And today I would like to review Cold Mountain by Charles Frazier. This was turned into a very good movie. I have the DVD here, which starred Jude Law, Nicole Kidman, and Renee Zellweger. And the movie was very good. It did win some Academy Awards, but I highly recommend reading the book first, as I do think it is superior. What really makes Cold Mountain a great book is the beauty of the writing, the beauty of the language. And in a lot of books these days, it almost seems like it's fallen out of fashion for people to be concerned with writing quality. I would say, starting with Hemingway, there was an emphasis leaning toward just getting the story across in the most simple way possible. And I've even seen this in a lot of advice to writers where the advice is that style should be invisible. You shouldn't notice that the writer has a style. If you notice that, it's bad writing. And personally, I just feel that's bullshit because I think that's a preference. I think that, of course, some people would like to read a book where they're not thinking about how a sentence is constructed. They're just thinking about, I just know what's going on. Just convey the information of the story and move on. But I think that really takes away from a lot of the beauty that can be found in great literature. I think that to say that books should only be written in the most simple way possible, not only do I feel like it's a dumbing down of the art form that is writing and that is storytelling, but I also feel like it's a dumbing down of the English language in general. A beautiful passage can make you feel something. A beautiful passage can get you emotional. When I started writing fiction in high school, I had a deep admiration for the classics. And so I was trying really hard to emulate the classics. And I think what you ended up with is a lot of sort of wordy and sort of confusing attempt at poetry that more often turned the reader away than pulled the reader in. So I think it's one of those things where it's like, I think every writer, every great author should attempt to write beautifully if they can. But that it definitely takes a lot of skill to do it. It's like picking up, a violin and saying, I'm going to learn Mozart. This is the first thing I want to learn. Well, maybe you should start with something simpler before you get to the hard stuff. That doesn't mean that no one should even attempt to play like Mozart just because it's challenging. Cold Mountain is a Civil War novel. It deals with a character named Inman, who is a Confederate soldier in the Civil War. He has a battle where he's wounded badly. He ends up in a hospital, and when he gets out of the hospital, he decides that he is going to be a deserter. And during the Civil War, if you were a deserter, you would get shot and killed. And so it was really, really dangerous deciding that you didn't want to be part of the war. And so he spends most of the book trying to get back home to a place called Cold Mountain, which is a small village where the love of his life is waiting for him. Her name is Ada. And Ada is a girl that he has known briefly. He falls in love with her, and she falls in love with him. And then he goes off to war before they can get married. And so in a lot of ways, it kind of reminded me of the Odyssey, with Odysseus having all these various adventures trying to get back home. And on the way back home, Inman has a lot of temptations that try to lure him away from his quest of getting back home. One thing that reminded me of the Odyssey reminded me of the scene where Odysseus goes to the land of the lotus eaters, where none of his men want to get back home because they find this beautiful island where there are these intoxicating fruits that make them forget about home. And so something similar happens in Cold Mountain. I don't want to get into it, but something similar happens. Inman also crosses paths with a witch or an old lady that is, she's more of a, she doesn't have magic powers, but she has a lot of sort of home remedies that she makes out of like roots and powders and plants and stuff. So she's kind of like a real world witch, which again reminds me of Circe from the Odyssey. In a world where he's sort of surrounded by corruption and greed and hate and violence and evil, and there's a lot of terrible things that go on around him, not just on the Confederate side, but also on the Yankee side, also from the North. The Northern soldiers also do a lot of terrible things. And you sort of discover that it's not so much the sides that are good and bad, but it's really individuals. Despite the fact that Inman is a Confederate soldier, he really displays no racism. He doesn't really have a strong conviction for the cause of the Confederacy. All he really wants to do is stay alive and get back home to the woman he loves. Now, I will say, comparing the movie to the book, I think the movie is more of a romance. There's a very clear sense that the characters love each other and Inman is trying to get back to his lover. In the book, it's a little more unclear what kind of reception Inman is going to get back to, because he's not really certain. He's been gone for 4 years, so there's an uncertainty as to whether or not, when he gets back to Ada, whether she's even going to remember him, whether she's even going to recognize him. And one, I think, theme that runs across the story is not just war is hell, but also that war transforms people. War sort of destroys the soul of a person that fights in the war. The Civil War was definitely one of the worst wars in human history. So it definitely had a transformative effect on a lot of people that fought in it. I will say that Frazier's writing is, for me at least, as an author, it's something that I want to be able to emulate. And I know that I can't. I'm not quite there. I don't think I can write as beautifully as Frazier. I don't want to say that. But I will say that it's something aspirational. It's something that I sort of am striving to be able to write as good as Frazier writes. I would prefer to be the author of Cold Mountain more than I would want to be the author of, let's say, 50 Shades of Grey. Like, if I was given the choice, would you rather have 50 Shades of Grey fame or Cold Mountain fame? I would say Cold Mountain fame any day. And if you like what you've heard and you have an appreciation for language the way I do, then I think, yeah, Cold Mountain, definitely thumbs up. But if you're the type of person that you really just want your story to be just straightforward, get to the point, just tell me what happens, maybe you're gonna find Cold Mountain, you're going to find less to appreciate. So that's my review. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, leave a like, a comment, please subscribe. And if there's a book that you think that I should read next, please let me know.